And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the studio this evening. As you can tell, or as you can hear, anyways, I've got a little bit of something that's going around. It's affecting my voice just a little bit. I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm going to forge on ahead, and we're going to do a painting tonight. This is what I have picked out. This is a blue heron. We've got plenty of these blue herons that live here in the area that I live in. I see them all the time hunting in the tidewaters and on the golf course, in the fields, all over the place. They're just a majestic, huge bird. I love these things. So I decided I'm going to give them a little love and do a little painting of them. I'm not going to do like usual, I'm not going to try to do a representation of this painting. I am going to do, well, kind of like a bust or silhouette of it, kind of here. Let it trail out at the bottom, and we're going to do some extra stuff at the top. But anyways, this is the one I'm doing right here. I've got my paints right there. Let me walk you through the colors that I have here. These are, here they are, they're all M-gram paints over there. Starting from the top left in the blues, which is up here, I've got turquoise, phthalo blue, ultramarine, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, cobalt green, phthalo green, olive green, and azo green. Then these three down here, I've got sepia, neutral tint, and Payne's gray. On the second line down here, I've got cobalt violet, maroon perylene, permanent alizarin crimson, pyrrole red, quinacridone rose, burnt umber, azo orange, gamboge, hansa yellow, and yellow ochre. I'm going to put this up here so I can refer to that. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sandy. Let's see. Those are my M-gram paints that I'm using. I got some new brushes recently from my friends at Zen Art. This is the Zen Art Black Tulip collection. Comes in, I don't know, what do we got here? 6 brushes. I'm going to have a review of these out later, probably this coming week. You'll be able to see that, but for now I'm going to use these, and you can see them in action here. And I think with that I am going to get started. Alan Estrada already asking a question. I love it. What is my favorite quill brush? Well, before I get started with this, I will reach over. Well, hang on one second. Here we go. This is my favorite quill brush right here. You don't see me use it very often, but I on recent videos, you've seen it in older videos, and if I'm just painting for fun and I just pull a brush out, this is probably what I pull out. This is the Da Vinci Petit Gris Pure. This is a pure squill oh man, I can't talk. Pure squirrel mop brush. I'm having trouble talking. Anyway, that is my favorite quill brush. There we go. So I'm going to grab, now let's see, I'm going to grab a number 8 round, and I'm just going to wet a bit. I'm going to start over on this bird's bill here, or beak. I'm just going to pre-wet that a little bit. We've got a few colors we want to put in here, and I'm going to grab some of this gamboge, just a little bit of this. Might need to darken it a little bit as we go on, but I'm going to start with this. And I'm just going to drop that color on here. I guess I can talk a little bit about the brushes. Oh, there is one thing I did forget to tell you. The thing is the paper that I'm using. The paper that I'm using is this. This is Strathmore 500 series cold pressed paper. I believe, yep, this is 100% cotton paper. So that's what I'm using there. I knew I forgot something. I've got a little bit. This bird has just a tiny spot of really cold yellow up there on its beak, and while I'm there, I think I'm going to do his eye. All right, I'm going to leave that sit, and I'm going to mix up a nice soft. We've got some. I should bring it over here so we can see it a little better. I've got some nice soft bluish gray colors over here. So I think I'm going to start with Payne's Gray here. I'm going to add in, I'm going to make a nice puddle of this. I'm going to add in a couple of different colors. Hope you all can see me in the corner. In fact, while I do this, I think I'll bring this over here. Let's see, a nice juicy puddle of Payne's Gray here. And on one side of it, I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow ochre. And on the other side of it, I think I'll add some of this cerulean. And that should give me a couple of different values. And I think I have a little bit of kind of some pinkish stuff up here that we're going to get to. I'm going to drop a little bit of this color on here. Not too much and not too dark. I'm trying to learn. Painting is a learning process. Every time we do this, we hopefully learn a little bit of something else, whether that be something about the paint, the paper, the brush, or even ourselves. And what I'm learning is I need to work in more layers and a little bit slower. I do tend to sometimes to try to get color onto what I'm doing a bit too fast. All right, right down here, I'm going to get some of this gray that has a little bit of this cerulean in it. And I'm not going to, I'll just tell you, I'm not going to worry about all of these feathers that come way down here now. We'll get to those in just a second, or just a minute or so. We'll get to it eventually anyways. There we go, and I just want to charge into here a little bit of this, maybe a little stronger than that. Well, that might be a little too strong. A little bit of this ochre to warm this up through here. And let these colors mix in there a little bit. Let me see if I can't make this a little bigger. There we go. That might help a little bit. And I'm just going to let all of this join. And while I'm doing that, I'm looking over here. Oh, I hate to do this, but I'm going to get a little bit of permanent alizarin crimson. It's so strong. I think if I just touch a little bit here, I think we'll be okay. And while we're at this point, I think I can go ahead and say to you, I just charged in some extra color right on the top of this. And I can do that without too much fear right now because I'm using some cotton paper, and the cotton fibers react quite a bit differently than do wood pulp fibers. The wood fibers seem to grab that paint and either push it all the way across the page, or sometimes they just let it kind of all clump up in one spot, and either of those is not what we want. The cotton paper just allows this to just kind of flow across the page just a little bit. Really does make for a very nice surface to paint on. It is, however, if you paint on a budget, it is quite a bit more expensive. I'm just trying to take a little bit of this color out of here. Not worry about all of it, but just a little bit. I think that looks a little bit better. Where did I get my pre-cut watercolor paper? This paper I actually found on sale on Amazon. It came in that pack. Oh, here it is. This pack. How many are in here? 10 sheets in here. I also have some that are slightly smaller and some that are slightly larger. I got them a year or so ago, and I'm sorry, I don't really remember how much I paid for them. I wish that I did. I wish I could just tell you, I paid, $15 a pack for them, but I really have no idea at this point. Okay, so I'm trying to mix up a nice darkish blue. I'm just using some phthalo blue here, which is a very strong blue, and a little bit of my burnt umber, which just grays it out a little bit without taking all of the color out of it. Both of these are a little bit warm colors, and so now I want to just give a little bit of this on his head right here. There we go. Just going to draw a little bit on here. And for any of you who came a little bit late to the broadcast, no worries. I sound like this because I've picked up something somewhere. My throat is fine. It doesn't hurt or anything, but it sounds terrible. Okay, I'm gonna get my bigger brush. This is number 10 round that came in the same black tulip group with kit. One of these words. The black tulip kit, and this is a number 10. Just want to grab some of this cerulean here. Gonna make a nice puddle of this. I just remembered as I did this that this cerulean is fresh. It's wet. I just put it in the palette about an hour, maybe a little less, before I started this broadcast. So the paint itself is still damp. So anytime you're going to touch it with M gram, it's really going to come out strong. But I want the body of this bird, we'll dull this out a little bit, but I want the body of this bird to be this nice cerulean color. And then I'm not going to paint the whole body of this bird. I want this just to kind of fade out down here in the corner. Just let those colors run and do whatever they want down here. There we go. Like I said, I'm just trying to do kind of a bust for it. There we go, and that's going to run down and fade. Just a nice, gentle fade out to the bottom really nicely. All right, I'm going to come back up. I'm going to go back to my size 8 one. I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to grab a little bit of this color that's in his head here, and I'm going to start defining with that the top of his beak here, or his bill. Just going to put in a few lines here and there. Just to give a little bit. I need to turn this just ever so slightly. Let's see, I'm looking at how it is around his eye here. How that color comes up. He's got a couple of lines on that bill, somewhat like that. I think we'll end up going back over that again. And then I'm going to take just a bit more of that, and I'm going to go underneath here. Just dab a little bit. That's going to be his little gruff underneath. And while I've got that, I'm going to take some of this warm gray color that we've made for this part of his neck. And I'm going to do this, just dotting in a little bit of a shadow line under here. There we go. I don't need too much. I don't need all that. And I'm thinking that this is now dry enough. I can come back and I can put a little bit more of a shadow line in here. Let's see. He's got some. I'm going to make this part up here a bit warmer. It's on the bottom of his neck ish, his neck parts. His neck is so crazy. I was out on the golf course here where I see them all the time, and there was one hunting. He's standing perfectly still, minding his own business, not doing anything, and all of a sudden he must have caught something or seen something, because I heard a giant screech, and from out of a nearby tree a hawk came flying down and attacked him. And if he had anything in his beak, he dropped it right away and took off flying. It was amazing. You could hear his individual feathers flapping and rubbing against each other. It was really, really an amazing thing to see. All right, there we go. We've got some nice color on there. I'm actually going to lighten up this part up here, or I'm going to lighten it up. I'm going to put a little bit of color on this part here. Maybe that's a cast shadow from his head there a little bit, and I'm going to leave this little streak right in the middle without a whole lot of color in it. And I'm hoping that that's going to define quite a bit of his neck right there. Now you do see I've got a bit of a light spot in here, which we're going to take care of in a second, but that to me, if I look at our picture, is here. It's quite a bit darker than the surrounding area. So I want to let this dry, and then I can really darken that up. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? I'm going to, let's see, what am I going to do next? I'm going to take our dark mixture that we used up here, and I can't do that quite yet. I was going to put it here, but I'm afraid that that's just a bit wet, and it is. So what I'm going to do is mix a little bit more of that. That looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna darken this up one more time, and if I can avoid touching it, I'm going to try to get a little shadow area, or a little depth on the top of his head. But I need to not touch this part that I'm working on right now. There we go. Let's see, just grabbed my watercolor supplies and I'm painting along with you. Oh, that's great, Alan. That's fantastic. I'm glad you're painting along with me. Let's see, I'm going to take a little bit of the gray that we used in here, a little bit of our cooler gray, and see if I can just put a little line up here. It'll be better if it's a line that I put on there rather than a pencil line. I'd rather see that and get most of the color off of that brush and just touch the side of that. Well, there's a lot of blue in this brush. There we go. I think that's going to work. By the time that dries, when we come back to that, that'll be great. I'm hoping that is just dry enough. I'm going to come in here and draw this dark patch on his wings. I'm really not sure what this patch represents or why this patch on his wing, I hope I'm in the middle so you can all see. I'm not sure why that has why that is so dark on these birds, but on this bird in particular. But we're going to paint it on there, something like that. And then very lightly, let's see, I'm going to switch to, this is a number 2 rigger. What I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to take some of the cerulean, which is too thick and too, based upon what I've done here, it's a little more than I want, because I want to start to draw a little of this out, and I want to know where I'm drawing without making too many big lines, because these are going to be where I'm going to put some wing lines. Wing lines. Has anybody ever heard of wing lines? This is where I'm going to put the feathers. Wing lines. Sometimes I have to laugh at myself. I don't know what I'm talking about. A wing line. That's great. Good job, Michael. A wing line. Hey. Come on, if you can't laugh at yourself while you're doing stuff, what's the point? Let's see, a little bit more of this color, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to make some little triangles up here. These are where his feathers kind of meet, maybe. I'm going to be going over this again, maybe just a few lines here and there. I'm going to be going over this with a bit of a darker color. I want to gray this down just a little bit. This cerulean straight, as I'm looking at it, it's a little too bright for the rest of this guy, so I'm going to gray that down a little bit. But as we do this underneath, we'll be able to see a few of these lines, and it really might help to set it off, and we might not even have to draw very many of the original feathers on here, because we'll have this beautiful underpainting under here. And I'm not too worried about what's happening down here at the bottom, because like I said, I want this to kind of fade off into nothingness anyways. So the fact that I've got this droplet here that it looks like it might be causing a few issues, I'm going to let it go. I'm okay with it for right now. All I want to do at the moment is just define a little bit of where some wings are. I've got a nice little bit here going on. I've got a nice little bit here that I like with these feathers down here. Those ones are really big and long. Before I do too much with that, I'm gonna come back up to my bill, back up here. You know what? I'm gonna stay with this brush. I'm gonna grab a little bit of this Azo orange, very much like the gamboge, but a little bit darker. And I'm going to drop in a little bit of color on the bottom of his bill here, and it looks as though he's got some color right in there. I actually think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go with that, and I just want to darken this black up that's on there a little bit. It looks like it's a little wet still. I think we'll be able to deal with it. Yep, very nicely right there. That's looking pretty good. Now, I'm not wild. I still have a lot of blue on this brush. I've got a little bit of blue on this brush. PS4Piece looks great. Hey, from Minneapolis. Oh, Minneapolis. Good to have you in the studio. I hope it has warmed up for you there. I know it was not a good winter for you. My father lives in the upper Midwest, and he got buried in snow. Let's see. Appreciate the snowman you did a while. A little ID place card for. He's probably like, oh, great. I love that little snowman. That was so much fun painting that guy. I love that. And I love hearing stories about how people have taken it and or you know, anything and made it their own and used it to enrich their lives or somebody else's lives. I mean, that's what it's all about. I don't want to, if I just wanted to keep art to myself, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be keeping it to myself. But, well, that's great. I'm glad that you like that snowman. I'm glad that you were able to find some good and to use him. That makes me extremely happy. Good. I love stories like that. I'm going to darken this little bit of shadow underneath him. I know it doesn't quite look like it does in the picture. I'm kind of okay with that. Oh, and I've got to make this darker down here too, don't I? Okay, I'm going to mix a little bit more of my dark color here. Again, it's just burnt umber and phthalo blue. A lot of people, when they see phthalo blue, it scares them because phthalo blue is this crazy bright blue color. But I promise you, if you stick with phthalo blue and you learn to use it in a mix, don't try to use phthalo blue by itself. It's usually, for most manufacturers, it's usually just such a crazy color. But even though it's such a kooky, crazy color, if you can mix it with something, oh man, it's wonderful to mix with. I have some blue on here. I'm trying to get out. There's a lot of blue in here. There we go. I think I got just about all of it out. I just want to make sure I don't have too much blue onto the bulk of his neck over here. If I do, I really kind of need to blend it out to make sure we don't see much of it at all. I don't want to see a lot of that blue. Okay, I'm okay with this, how it's looking. Got a dark shadow underneath, but back behind. Helps his shoulder here and his wing to stand out quite a bit. I'm good with that. Okay, so now we're on to what I talked about before, which was just giving a wash onto here. In fact, I'm gonna go and use my mop brush for this. Here it is. This will work great. And I'm gonna mix a very light bit of, cerulean. There's our major color here, with some Payne's gray, and that'll just take the edge off a little bit. Just to, throw some of that orange in there too. That'll make it a warmer color. Cynthia, great to have you back again. Cooking a dinner again. What are we having this time? I hope it's delicious. In fact, I'm sure it's going to be delicious. All right, so you can see how I'm doing this. I'm just doing a little bit of glazing on here just to knock that color down a little bit. It was a little too bright, maybe a bit unnaturally bright for my taste, and we still have a bit of the wing, the feather, the wings. God, I can't talk. Ooh, spaghetti bacon garlic bread. Man, it sounds good. Okay, now I need to let this dry. And I said that I'm going to do something a little bit different with this guy today. And this is where I need to be pretty brave, because I'm gonna get this whole area wet. I'm gonna charge in a different color blue, and I'm gonna let it explode, so it gives it kind of a dreamy, hopefully ethereal kind of a look. We'll see how it goes. I've done this before, and quite honestly, with varied success. But we'll see what it looks like tonight. I don't know why this guy was just calling to me to do this. I'm going to put a little bit of my cobalt blue on here. And I think cobalt is going to be a little more stark than I want. So I'm going to warm that up with a little bit of ultramarine. Okay, and be brave. Be brave. That's a good start. Just let that color mix and go everywhere. I'm going to help it a little bit. You know what? I'm going to do a little bit more than that. I should put it all the way down in there and let it come off his back too. There we go. Now you can see why I do this. All of a sudden it went from something that was just kind of a still life to now something that seems much more dynamic. Just dropping in a little bit of blue. This is a little bit of different blue. I grabbed a little bit of that phthalo. I grabbed a little bit of the cerulean, a little bit of cobalt. And just like that, it just really, boom, popped off. Some people like to do splatter and this and that, and I never got in on the whole splatter thing. Could never get my brushes to splatter the way I wanted to, and it's always a bit odd, but I always felt that I ought to be able to do something like this and make it just look fantastic and pop off of there. And all of a sudden I put that on, and look, that whole head just went boom and shot forward on the page. All right, Cynthia, what do you think you missed? Other than my explanation that my voice is completely crazy right now. I picked up something somewhere along the line, and I don't feel badly, but it got into my throat, and it's not playing well with me. And let's just see if this is dry enough. Could put in a few marks here and there where I had previously. Hopefully this will give a little extra texture to what we're doing also. There we go. All right, and as I'm looking at this, I'm going to tip this just this way a little bit. If I'm going to have a little bit of that blue on one side of this guy's head, I better have a little bit of blue on the other side of this guy's head. I don't really want to have a ton of it on this side. I feel like a little bit is called for here. And I think that's probably all I'm going to do with that. Oh, I think his head is looking pretty good. We've got a few things to do. I need to wait for this to dry. While I'm doing that, I can go in. I'm going to get a mix of Payne's Gray and neutral tint. I'm going to move this a little bit because I'm going to do just a bit of work on his eye. I'll just give a little dot there. And a little black around there. Maybe he's got just a touch of mascara on or something. It's a little darker than I wanted. Do I have a little tiny brush? I guess I do. Come on, come on, come on, Michael. You can do this. You can do this. There you go. I like that. It looks like he's looking forward now. Come on, picture. And oh, it's drying up a little bit, but not quite as fast as I want. I'll tell you what we're going to do. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to see if this works. It was working earlier. And I'm going to try to make some of these that are coming off of him. All right, and so I've got some of those, and I know that you can't see the white on the white. I got it. I needed to have a little bit of something on there. First of all, I wanted to have a little something on here so that when I came back like that, haha, all of a sudden they're there. All I did was at the end of wherever I had drawn that white line, just taking a small brush and drawing on some other feathers, and boom! All right, we got that done. Now we got one thing left to do. Well, while we're waiting, this is bugging me. While I'm waiting for that to dry, well, let's come up and let's have some more fun up here. I know every time I say that, it's as though I'm fiddling instead of painting, and I'm afraid something's going to get goofed up, but you know what? It's all good. Is that a watercolor pencil? Great question. I guess I didn't talk about this. No, this is not a watercolor pencil. This is a Sino or a Uniball Sino white gel pen. Oh, here it is. And I have a video where I talk about the different ways that I put highlights on different paintings. This is one of them. I also have a white colored pencil and a grease pencil, or China marker, to make white marks on things. If you want a stark white line, then this white gel pen is great for that. If you want something that's really soft and you've got to rub this and rub this, you want to make a highlight, but you don't want it to be a stark line, you can use this pencil and just rub and rub and rub and put a highlight on that way. And this one is somewhere in between. It's more aggressive than the colored pencil. I mean, it is a colored pencil, but it's more aggressive than this one, but it won't get you the stark white lines like this one will. I apologize. I should have stopped and done that. All right, so now I've got to get in some feathers in here before too much goes on. I'm just going to mix up all of my blues over here. And let's see what we can do. I've got this area here. It's still a little bit damp. We've got these. I'm just basically making a mark here and a mark there. You can see I'm not really following. I've got a big B to paint on the end of that one. Not following any particular line here. I'm just looking at this, and I know that. Well, I can see on here. There's a band here that are longer, right? So I could put on a bit longer thing like this. That's a bit of a shadow. And then that shadow is the bottom of the feathers up above it. Right, and then these feathers give way to this row of feathers down here on the bottom. And I get a little shadow underneath there I want to put on, and a little underneath there. I'm going to put just a little bit at the end of these feathers. Maybe they curl in a little bit. And what I want to do, let's see, I'll go back to using my Zen art brushes. What I want to do is get a little bit more of this color that I used here. Actually, maybe I don't want to do that. I kind of like the way this blends out at the bottom before I do anything crazy with that. I think the last thing I want to do is, I don't know what brush I can do this with. Did I lose a brush here? One round, 2 rounds. Okay, I got it. Looking for the smaller of these 2 rounds. Is add a little dimension to the back of this bird. It's not necessarily there in the photo, but I found that when you look at it, when you look at things in watercolor, especially if you're not doing an exact representation of things, that if you don't try to add that dimension, it could really come out flat. And I don't want it to really come out flat. So I'm just going to add a little bit here and let that blend out a little bit. And so I didn't do anything really with these wings, with all these individual feathers. I just put in a couple of lines. And if you guys want to hang with me for just a minute or two while this dries, I'm going to put on some highlights. There are a lot of highlights on his wing here that I'm going to put on here with this. Oh, I did forget one more thing. I got to wait for that to dry just a bit too. He's got this beautiful long feather at the top up here that comes down, just like these come down. And it comes way down. So I want to make sure I put that on there. I need to mix up something that's a little bit darker to make it stand out against our blue background here. Thank you, Janet. Thank you. Let's see if I grab that and pull it out just like that. And my color isn't exact, but I can blend that inside of that blue, and by doing that you would never know that that wasn't the exact right color. Oh, we're coming close to the end. We're getting there. Only a few minutes more. Let me see if I can do a little bit of highlights. You'll see when you drop these on, it really is amazing how I just want to put it on next to those parts. In fact, you know what? I'm going to give them a little highlight over here too. And you can continue to define those feathers while you're doing this. There's no reason you can't do that. And I think I'm going to leave it with something like that. Let me sign this guy. There he is. There is my interpretation of the great blue heron, one of my favorite birds from this area. This is what he turned out like. I hope you guys like it. I think he turned out great. Let me move this up. I'll put them right next to each other. There and there. Turn off the paint cam. You don't need to see that anymore. There we go. So my interpretation of the great blue heron, here he is. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate you coming and spending some time with me in the studio and listening to my voice, which I'm sure is not sounding brilliant. But that's it for me tonight. I'll be back here next Saturday doing another painting live in the studio, 8 p.m. Pacific. Until then, thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.